I'm Mark, 48, male, and after quietly paying my niece's college tuition for 4 years, my sister told me I was just the uncle and shouldn't expect to be thanked at the graduation party. That single dismissive comment was the tiny crack that broke the dam, releasing a flood of memories and realizations that had been building for over 2 decades. The foundation of the family I thought I knew, the one I had invested so much of myself into, crumbled in that one smirking moment. My sister Brenda is 2 years my junior. Growing up, we were close, or so I thought. I was the protective older brother, the one who made sure her homework was done and who saved up his allowance to buy her the doll she desperately wanted for Christmas. Our parents were loving but always stretched thin, working multiple jobs to keep us afloat. They instilled in us a powerful sense of family obligation, a belief that you always show up for your own. I took that lesson to heart. Brenda, it seems, took it as a one-way street. She married young to a man named Tom who was decent enough but lacked ambition. They were perpetually on the verge of a financial crisis, a cycle of poor decisions and bad luck that always seemed to require a helping hand, and my hand was always the one extended. I'd done well for myself. As a civil engineer, I had a stable, lucrative career. I never married and have no children of my own, a fact Brenda often referenced with a strange mix of pity and entitlement, as if my child-free status meant my resources were community property. My niece, Ashley, became the daughter I never had. From the moment she was born, I adored her. I was the one who bought her first bicycle, who took her to the zoo, who sat patiently through her painfully long school plays. But my love and support were often treated as background noise, an expected utility rather than a gift. The pattern of being taken for granted wasn't new. It was a well-established family tradition. I remember one year about a decade ago, I decided the whole family needed a real vacation. Brenda and Tom were stressed, the bills were piling up, and Ashley was at an age where she deserved some happy memories. I booked and paid for a week-long trip to a beautiful beach resort. I didn't want any fanfare, I just wanted to see them relax. The entire time, Brenda was on her phone, posting pictures with captions like, "My amazing husband Tom works so hard to give us this life," and "so blessed that Tom could treat us to this getaway." When a cousin later commented on one of my photos, asking if I'd gone with them, Brenda replied directly on the post, "Yes, it was so generous of Tom to invite my brother along." I felt a sting of confusion and hurt, but I said nothing. I told myself she was just trying to build up her husband's confidence, that it was a white lie for a good cause. I didn't want to cause a scene or embarrass her, so I swallowed my pride and let the lie stand. The second more glaring incident was Ashley's 16th birthday. She needed a car to get to her part-time job and for school activities. Brenda called me in a panic, explaining that their old sedan was on its last legs and there was no way they could afford a safe, reliable car for Ashley. The subtext was clear. So I went to a dealership and bought a brand new top-of-the-line safe compact car. I put a big red bow on it and had it delivered to their house on the morning of her birthday party. Ashley was ecstatic, and for a moment, seeing her genuine joy made it all worth it. But at the party that evening, Brenda and Tom gathered everyone in the living room for a toast. Tom, holding a glass of champagne, cleared his throat. "We just wanted to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our little girl," he began. "And as a special surprise, Brenda and I were able to get her something we know she's wanted for a long time." He gestured dramatically towards the driveway. Ashley hugged him and Brenda, sobbing with gratitude. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. You're the best parents in the world." My name was never mentioned. I was standing in the back of the room, holding a paper plate with a slice of cake, feeling like a ghost at my own party. A few people who knew about my financial stability gave me knowing, sympathetic glances, but no one said a word. Again, I chose silence. I told myself that it was for Ashley. Her happiness was what mattered, not my credit. So when Ashley got accepted into her dream university 4 years ago, the call from Brenda was no surprise. It came late one evening, her voice thick with manufactured despair. "Mark, I don't know what we're going to do," she sighed. "This is Ashley's dream, but the tuition, it's just impossible. We'd have to sell the house. Tom is so stressed he can't sleep." I knew what was coming. I had been saving diligently my whole life, and my investment portfolio was healthy. I could afford it. "Don't worry, Bren," I said, the familiar words feeling automatic on my tongue. "I'll take care of it. Just let Ashley focus on her studies." A wave of relief washed through her voice. "Oh, Mark, you're a lifesaver, but listen, could we keep this between us? I don't want Ashley to feel like a burden, and I don't want Tom to feel, inadequate. We'll just tell everyone we're managing." "Of course," I said, "it will be our secret." For 4 years, I honored that secret. Every semester, a significant sum of money left my bank account and was transferred directly to the university. I never mentioned it, I never asked for thanks. I just paid, fueled by the love for my niece and the deeply ingrained belief that this is what family does. I watched her post photos from campus, read her papers, and cheered her on from the sidelines, the silent, invisible benefactor of her success. I thought the pride I would feel at her graduation would be my reward. I was wrong. The reward was a lesson, sharp and painful, that I was long overdue to learn. The weeks leading up to Ashley's graduation were filled with a quiet, humming excitement in my chest. This was it, the culmination of 4 years of hard work, hers in the classroom and mine in the background. I felt a paternal sense of pride that was deep and resonant. I had seen the course catalogs, the tuition statements, the occasional stressed-out texts from Ashley about exams. I felt invested, not just financially but emotionally. This degree was something I had helped build, a cornerstone for the rest of her life. Brenda called me about a month before the ceremony. Her tone was all business, a flurry of logistics and planning. "Mark, we're booking a private room at the Oak Room for a celebration dinner right after the ceremony," she said, not asking if I wanted to come, but informing me of the plan. "I'll need your credit card for the deposit. It's just easier to have it on one card, and you know how tight things are with all the other expenses." I didn't hesitate. "No problem, Bren, send me the details." I paid the deposit for a lavish dinner for 20 people without a second thought. It felt like part of the overall contribution, the final celebratory flourish on a 4-year project. I even took 2 days off from work to make sure I was completely available for the festivities. I bought a new suit, got a haircut, and picked out a thoughtful graduation gift for Ashley. A high-end leather briefcase engraved with her initials, something professional for her future career in business administration. On the morning of the graduation, the sun was bright and the air was filled with optimism. I drove to their house to ride to the university with them. When I arrived, the house was buzzing with chaotic energy. Brenda was directing traffic, Tom was struggling with his tie, and Ashley was a vision in her cap and gown, her face glowing with a mixture of excitement and relief. "Uncle Mark," she squealed, giving me a quick distracted hug. "Can you believe it? I'm finally done." "I can believe it," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I never doubted you for a second. I am so incredibly proud of you." She smiled, but her eyes were already scanning the room, looking for her friends, her phone, the next moment. I was a brief stop in her whirlwind of a day. I tried not to let it bother me. Today was her day, after all. The ceremony was held in the university's massive arena. We found our seats and I bought a program, my eyes scanning the long list of names until I found hers. Ashley M. Peters, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, magna cum laude. A wave of warmth washed over me. Magna cum laude, she had truly excelled. All those late nights, all that stress, it had all paid off. Watching her walk across that stage was a moment I will never forget. As her name was called, I stood up, clapping louder than anyone else. I saw her look out into the crowd, a tiny figure in a sea of graduates, and for a fleeting second I thought our eyes met. I beamed, my heart swelling. This feeling, I thought, this was my payment, this was enough. In that moment I truly believed it. I felt every bit the proud father, the supportive guardian, the man who had helped make this possible. The secrecy, the lack of acknowledgement, it all seemed trivial in the face of her monumental achievement. After the ceremony, we were swept up in a tide of celebrating families. We took pictures on the lawn, Ashley posing with her parents, her grandparents, her friends. I stood to the side, taking pictures of them with my phone. Brenda, seeing me standing alone, motioned me over. "Mark, get in a picture," she called out. I joined the group, standing on the edge next to Tom. Someone's cousin took the photo. "Okay, now just the parents and Ashley," Brenda announced immediately after. I stepped away, my smile feeling a little more brittle. It was a small thing, a tiny slight, but it was like a faint, discordant note in an otherwise perfect symphony. I shook it off. I was being too sensitive. On the drive to the Oak Room, the car was filled with cheerful chatter about the future. Ashley was talking about job interviews, about maybe moving to the city. Tom and Brenda were beaming, soaking in the praise from the grandparents about what a wonderful job they'd done raising her. I sat in the passenger seat listening, feeling a growing sense of detachment. It was as if I was watching the celebration through a pane of glass. I was there, but not truly part of it. The role I had played was in a different story, one that it seemed only I had read. I held the gift-wrapped briefcase on my lap, hoping that at the dinner, in a more intimate setting, my real contribution might finally find a voice. I was still clinging to the naive hope that my family saw me, that they valued me, and that their silence was just an oversight soon to be corrected. The Oak Room was exactly the kind of place Brenda loved. Old-world charm, dark wood paneling, and white tablecloths so crisp they looked like they could cut you. It was expensive and screamed special occasion. Our private dining room was at the back, a long table elegantly set for the 20 guests Brenda had invited, a mix of immediate family, a few of Ashley's friends, and some of Brenda and Tom's closest friends who had known Ashley since she was a toddler. The atmosphere was jubilant, the air thick with laughter and the clinking of glasses. I found my seat, which Brenda had placed at the far end of the table, next to a grade aunt who was hard of hearing. I spent the first hour shouting pleasantries and passing bread baskets, feeling more like an usher than a guest of honor. Still, I maintained my smile. I was here for Ashley. After the main course plates were cleared, Tom stood up, tapping his water glass with a fork. A hush fell over the room. "I'd like to propose a toast," he began, his voice wavering with emotion. "To my daughter, Ashley, we are so proud of the woman you've become. It feels like just yesterday we were teaching you to ride a bike and now you're a college graduate. Your mother and I, we've done our best to give you every opportunity to clear the path for you. And you took that opportunity and soared. We love you to Ashley." The room erupted into Ashley and applause. I clapped along with everyone else, my smile feeling a little tighter. It was a lovely speech, a father's heartfelt words. Of course he should get the credit, but the phrase, "we've done our best to give you every opportunity," echoed in my ears. I knew the reality of that statement. Next, it was Brenda's turn. She rose, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "I'm just so emotional," she said, her voice catching. "My baby girl is all grown up. Ashley, honey, you have worked so hard. I want to thank everyone who has been a part of her village, my parents for always being there to babysit and for their endless encouragement." She nodded towards my mother and father, who beamed. "Tom's parents for their love and support, our wonderful friends who have been like aunts and uncles to her." She gestured around the table. "And of course, Tom, my rock, we did it, honey. We got her through." My heart began to sink. It wasn't just a casual omission anymore, it was a carefully constructed narrative. A village had been thanked, and apparently I didn't live in it. I sat perfectly still, my hands clasped in my lap, the gift-wrapped briefcase resting by my feet. I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. Then Ashley stood up. She looked radiant, her eyes shining. This was it, I thought. She knew she had to know. She was a smart, compassionate young woman. She would set the record straight. "Wow," she started, laughing nervously. "I don't know what to say. Thank you all so much for being here. Mom, Dad, thank you for everything, seriously, for sacrificing so much to make sure I could go to this amazing school. It meant the world to me, and I know it wasn't always easy. I worked hard to make you proud." She went on, thanking her grandparents for the care packages, a cousin for being her long-distance study buddy, even a high school teacher who had written her recommendation letter. She thanked her friends for the late-night pizza runs. The list was exhaustive, specific, and heartfelt. And with every name she mentioned, the cold knot in my stomach tightened. I felt my face grow warm. It was happening. They were going to do it. They were going to thank every single person in the universe except for me, the one person who had actually paid for the school she was thanking her parents for sending her to. I felt dizzy, a strange sense of disassociation washing over me. This couldn't be real. She finished her speech, and the room once again filled with applause. She sat down, and the general chatter resumed. No one seemed to notice the monumental, gaping hole in her acknowledgments. No one gave me a second glance. I felt invisible, worse than invisible. I felt erased. 4 years of silent, substantial support, wiped clean from the official family history in a series of pretty speeches. I sat through dessert in a daze, pushing a piece of cheesecake around my plate. The weight of the briefcase by my feet felt like a ton of bricks. It was a monument to my own foolishness. After the bill was settled quietly by the waiter bringing the check directly to me, as per Brenda's earlier arrangement, people began to mingle and say their goodbyes. I saw my chance. I approached Brenda near the doorway as she was hugging a friend. When she was free, I touched her arm gently. "Brenda," I said, my voice low and strained, "that was a lovely dinner." "It was, wasn't it?" she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "The speeches were very emotional," I continued, struggling to keep my tone neutral. "I was just a little surprised that, well, that I wasn't mentioned." Brenda's expression shifted. The feigned warmth vanished, replaced by a cool, hard impatience. She glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then looked back at me. A small, dismissive smirk played on her lips. "Mark, don't be so dramatic," she whispered harshly. "You're just the uncle. It's not like you're her father. Don't expect a shout-out for helping out a little." Helping out a little. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. $160,000, 4 years of my life's savings, countless other contributions over 20 years, all of it reduced to helping out a little. And my role, my deep, abiding love and support dismissed as just the uncle. I stared at her speechless. The hurt was so sharp, so profound, it stole the air from my lungs. In her eyes, I saw no gratitude, no remorse, not even a flicker of shame. I saw only irritation that I had dared to question the narrative. I saw that to her I wasn't a brother, a benefactor, or a beloved family member. I was a resource. A silent walking bank account that had suddenly, inconveniently found its voice. I didn't say another word. I just nodded slowly, the truth of the situation settling over me like a shroud. I turned, walked past my beaming niece who was busy showing off her new watch from her parents, and left the restaurant without saying goodbye. I left the engraved briefcase sitting by my empty chair. The drive home was silent. The city lights blurred past my window, but I saw none of them. My mind was a roaring vacuum, replaying Brenda's smirk, her cutting words over and over again. "You're just the uncle, don't expect a shout-out." The phrases circled, sharp and cruel, carving out the space where my naive affection for my family used to be. When I got back to my quiet, empty house, the silence was deafening. For years, I had seen this house not as empty, but as a place of peaceful solitude. Now it just felt lonely. I had poured so much of my emotional energy, so much of my identity into being the supportive anchor for Brenda and Ashley. Without that role, who was I? I walked into my home office, the place where I had initiated every single tuition payment, and sank into my chair. The feeling wasn't anger, not yet. It was a profound, hollow ache. It was the feeling of being utterly and completely used. I had been a fool. The vacation, the car, the endless smaller loans and gifts, they weren't oversights. They were a pattern. I was the family secret, the silent partner they were ashamed to acknowledge because my help highlighted their own failures. They took my money, but they resented me for having it. They enjoyed the fruits of my labor, but they erased my name from the tree. The next few days passed in a fog. I went to work, sat in meetings, reviewed blueprints, and exchanged pleasantries with colleagues. On the outside, I was the same steady, reliable Mark. On the inside, I was conducting a painful audit of my life. Every memory of family gatherings was now tainted. Every past sacrifice felt like a bad investment. No one from the family called. Not Brenda, not Ashley, not even my parents, who had been at the dinner and had surely noticed the omission, even if they didn't know the financial details. Their silence was its own form of confirmation. They were either oblivious or complicit, and I wasn't sure which was worse. They were all happy to participate in the pretty, fictional story of the hardworking parents who had sacrificed everything for their daughter. My reality, the actual truth, was an inconvenient complication to their perfect narrative. I found myself thinking about the briefcase. I pictured it sitting by that empty chair, a silent testament to my misplaced generosity. Had anyone even noticed it? Did Ashley ever receive it? Or was it simply swept away with the leftover bread rolls and discarded napkins, an afterthought, just like the man who had brought it? The symbolism was so painfully perfect it felt like something out of a novel. 2 weeks went by, 2 weeks of silence. The anger began to seep in, slow and hot, displacing the hollow ache. It wasn't the fiery, explosive anger of a sudden argument. It was a slow-burning, clarifying anger, the kind that burns away the fog of sentimentality and leaves behind only the hard, cold truth. My love had been treated as a limitless commodity. My generosity had been mistaken for weakness. My desire for family connection had been exploited for financial gain. I had allowed it to happen. At every turn, I had chosen silence. I had prioritized their comfort over my own dignity. I had swallowed every slight, rationalized every lie, and told myself it was for the greater good of the family. But it wasn't a family. It was a system, and I was its primary, unacknowledged funder. The system wasn't designed for mutual support. It was designed to funnel resources in one direction. The smirk on Brenda's face became the focal point of my anger. It wasn't just a dismissal, it was a display of power. She was telling me that she could take everything I had to offer and give me nothing in return, not even a simple thank you, and there was nothing I could do about it. She was telling me that I knew my place, and my place was to provide and be silent. I realized then that my silence had been the problem all along. I had taught them how to treat me. By never setting a boundary, I had allowed them to believe I didn't have any. By never demanding respect, I had allowed them to believe I didn't deserve it. The graduation dinner wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was simply the most blatant, public display of a dynamic that had been festering for years. And as I sat in my quiet house, the silence that had once been my default response began to feel like a cage I had built for myself. It was time to find the key. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nearly 3 weeks after the graduation dinner. I was at my desk, trying to focus on a complex structural analysis for a new bridge project. The work was usually a welcome distraction, a world of clean lines and predictable physics that made sense. But my thoughts kept drifting back to the ornate dining room, the smiling faces, the crushing weight of being erased. I was trying to accept it, to file it away as a painful life lesson and move on. I was telling myself that the money was gone, the relationship was a sham, and my best course of action was to simply withdraw, to fade into the background for good. Then an email notification popped up on my screen. The subject line was bland and bureaucratic. Urgent, final account action required, University of Northwood. My heart gave a slight jolt. I clicked it open. It was an automated message from the university's bursar's office. Dear Mark Johnson, this email is a final reminder regarding the student account of Ashley M. Peters, student ID 774B3910. As the authorized financial guarantor on this account, we are notifying you that a final outstanding balance of $875 must be settled before the student's official diploma and academic transcripts can be released. This diploma release fee covers final audits, printing, and official registry processing. The payment is due by July 28, 2025. Please log in to the payment portal to settle this balance. Failure to do so by the deadline will result in an indefinite hold on the release of all official academic credentials. Thank you. Office of the Bursar, University of Northwood. I read the email once. Then I read it again. $875, it wasn't the amount. After paying over $160,000, an amount less than $1,000 was practically pocket change. It was the principle. It was the irony. It was the universe handing me a lever on a silver platter. They couldn't get her diploma. The final tangible proof of her entire four-year journey, the very thing she had been celebrating, was locked behind a gate, and I was the only one with the key. All of their speeches, their self-congratulations, their carefully crafted narrative of parental sacrifice, it was all for nothing if they couldn't produce the actual piece of paper. I leaned back in my chair, the blueprints on my desk forgotten. The slow-burning anger I had been nursing for weeks suddenly coalesced into a point of sharp, cold clarity. Brenda's smirk flashed in my mind. You're just the uncle. The phrase had been meant to put me in my place, to remind me of my insignificance. But this email, this final, stupid little fee, it proved the opposite. I wasn't insignificant, I was essential. And they had made a colossal mistake in assuming my support was unconditional. My decision wasn't made in a fit of rage. It was a calm, calculated choice. It was the engineer in me identifying a fatal flaw in a system and deciding logically that the structure could no longer be supported. My emotional investment was gone, shattered on the floor of that restaurant. All that was left was the financial reality. And I was no longer willing to be the silent investor in a company that refused to list my name in its annual report. I picked up my phone. I didn't use the online portal. I wanted to speak to a person. I found the number for the bursar's office and dialed. Office of the bursar, this is Carol speaking, a pleasant voice answered. Hello, Carol, I said, my own voice steady and calm. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm calling about the account for student Ashley M. Peters. I gave her the student ID number. Yes, Mr. Johnson, I see the account right here. Are you calling to settle the final diploma fee? No, actually, I'm not, I said. I am calling to formally revoke my status as the financial guarantor for this account, effective immediately. I will not be making the final payment, nor will I be responsible for any future charges associated with this student. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Carol said, a note of surprise in her voice. Okay, sir, let me see. I see you have been the sole payer on this account for the past 4 years. That is correct, I said, and my financial support has now concluded. Please remove my name, my contact information, and all my payment details from this student's file. Can you please confirm that you have done so? Yes, sir, I can do that right now, she said, and I could hear the clacking of her keyboard. Okay, your information has been removed. The outstanding balance of $875 is now the sole responsibility of the student Ashley Peters. She will be notified of the change in guarantor and the outstanding balance. Just to be clear, sir, her diploma and transcripts will be held until this is paid. I understand perfectly, I said. Thank you for your help, Carol. I hung up the phone. It was done. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't been emotional. I had simply closed a door. I looked at the bridge blueprints on my desk. Every structure has a breaking point. Every support beam can only bear so much weight before it snaps. My family had spent years piling on the load, never once checking to see if the foundation was cracking. They were about to learn a very hard lesson in emotional and financial physics. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. It was the quiet, clean feeling of a problem being solved. The silence after that phone call lasted for 5 days. It was a different kind of silence now. Before, it had been the silence of neglect. Now it was the silence of a clock ticking down, a storm gathering just over the horizon. I knew the notification from the university would have been sent to Ashley. I knew the deadline was approaching. I was just waiting for the impact. It came on a Sunday evening. I was reading a book in my living room when my phone buzzed, displaying Ashley's name. My heart didn't leap. I felt no anxiety. I simply felt ready. I let it ring a few more times before answering, taking a slow, calming breath. "Hello, Ashley," I said, my tone neutral. The sound that came through the receiver was not a greeting, it was a raw, hysterical sob. "Uncle Mark," she wailed, her voice cracking with panic and disbelief. "What did you do? What did you do?" I remained quiet, letting her get it out. "I went to the school, they won't give me my diploma. They said there's a fee and that you refused to pay it. They said you took your name off everything, why would you do that? My diploma, Uncle Mark, I can't get my job without it. The offer is conditional on them receiving my official transcript." Her words were a torrent of panic, a desperate scramble to make sense of a world that had suddenly stopped catering to her. There was no sadness for a fractured relationship, only terror at a denied prize. "I can't get my degree," she sobbed again, the accusation clear in her voice. I waited for her to run out of breath. Then I spoke, my voice devoid of the warmth and affection she was used to. It was calm, detached, and final. "Guess you'll have to thank someone else now," I said. Silence, the sobbing stopped, replaced by a stunned, gasping intake of air. She was completely unprepared for that response. She had expected me to fold, to apologize, to rush to fix the problem I had created for her. She had expected the old Uncle Mark. He was no longer available. What does that mean?" she stammered, the hysteria giving way to confusion. "It means that my financial contributions have come to an end," I stated simply. "At your graduation dinner, your mother and father were thanked for sacrificing so much to send you to school. It seems only fair that they should handle the final bill." But they can't," she cried, the panic returning. "You know they don't have the money. Why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me." "I did," I said, and the use of the past tense hung in the air between us, cold and heavy. "But love and respect are a two-way street, Ashley. It seems my street has been closed for construction for some time. I'm just acknowledging T. He rode signs." Before she could respond, I said, "I have to go now. Goodbye," and I ended the call. I knew what would come next. Less than 60 seconds later, my phone rang again. This time it was Brenda. I answered on the first ring. "Mark, what is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, no preamble, no greeting, just pure undiluted rage. "Ashley just called me hysterical. You're holding her diploma hostage over a few $100s. After everything we've been through, are you insane?" "Hello, Brenda," I said calmly. "To be clear, I'm not holding anything hostage. The university has a policy, and I am no longer a party to your financial agreements with them. This is unbelievably petty. You're trying to ruin your niece's life because you didn't get a little thank you at a party. I can't believe how childish you're being." There it was, the complete dismissal of my feelings, the minimization of my contribution, the immediate pivot to making me the villain. It was the same script she'd been using for years. "This isn't about a thank you, Brenda," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "This is about 20 years of being treated like a service, not a person. This is about you standing in front of our entire family and smirking while you erased my existence. You told me my place, you said I was just the uncle. Well, uncles aren't legally or financially responsible for their nieces, so I am simply taking you at your word. I am acting like just the uncle. The one who sends a birthday card, not the one who pays the tuition." She was sputtering, a string of incoherent, angry noises. You can't do this. You promised. You said you would take care of it." "And I did," I replied. "I took care of it for 4 years to the tune of over $160,000. That helping out a little, as you called it, is now over. The final fee is your responsibility, or Tom's, or Ashley's. Frankly, I no longer care whose it is as long as it isn't mine." "You are dead to me, Mark," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "You are no longer a part of this family." A sad, bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Brenda," I said, "you made that perfectly clear at the dinner. I'm just finally accepting the terms, have a good life." I hung up the phone before she could reply. I then blocked both of their numbers. I sat back on my sofa, the book I had been reading lying forgotten. My heart was pounding, but not with fear or regret. It was the steady, powerful beat of liberation. The confrontation I had dreaded for my entire adult life was over. I had spoken the truth and I had stood my ground. The family I had tried so hard to hold together with my money and my silence had finally, officially excommunicated me. And all I felt was relief. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread through the extended family like ripples in a pond. My phone started ringing with calls from aunts, uncles, and cousins. The reaction was split down the middle, creating a schism in the family tree. Some who had long benefited from Brenda's version of reality were horrified. An aunt called to tell me I was cruel and heartless, that I had betrayed my own blood over a little bit of money and a hurt ego. A cousin accused me of being jealous of Brenda's happy family life. I listened to them patiently, and for the first time I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue, I just said, "I'm sorry you feel that way," and ended the conversation. I no longer had any interest in auditioning for a role in their lives. But there were others who came to my defense. My father, a quiet man who rarely involved himself in family drama, called me. "Mark," he said, his voice heavy. "Your mother and I, we didn't know the extent of it. We knew you helped out, but we didn't know you paid for everything. Your sister should never have treated you that way. What you did, it was a hard lesson, but maybe one she needed to learn." It wasn't a full-throated endorsement, but from him it was a seismic show of support. It meant more than he could ever know. A few cousins also reached out, the ones who had given me those sympathetic looks at Ashley's 16th birthday party. "It's about time, Mark," one of them said. "We've seen how they've treated you for years. We were just waiting for you to see it too." I eventually learned through the family grapevine that Brenda and Tom had been forced to take out a high-interest loan to pay the final university fee. They also had to borrow money from Tom's parents. The act of having to ask others, of having their financial situation exposed, was apparently a source of deep humiliation for them. Ashley got her diploma about a month late and managed to salvage her job offer. I felt no joy in their struggle, but I felt no guilt either. It was simply the natural consequence of their own actions. The machine had run out of its free fuel source and now had to find another way to operate. My relationship with Brenda and Ashley is, for all intents and purposes, over. I don't expect it to ever be repaired, because a repair would require them to acknowledge the fundamental flaw in its construction, and I don't believe they are capable of that kind of introspection. The loss of Ashley is a genuine sorrow. I mourn the sweet little girl I took to the zoo, the bright young woman I was so proud of. But I've had to accept that the person I loved may not have ever truly existed. She was, in part, a projection of my own hopes. Life is quieter now, but it's a more authentic quiet. My finances have recovered and are now being invested in my own future, my own retirement, my own travel plans. I reconnected with some old friends I had neglected, and I'm focusing on building relationships that are reciprocal, based on mutual respect and genuine affection, not obligation. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who values you, and who acknowledges the space you occupy in their life. For years, I was pouring myself into a leaking bucket, wondering why I always felt so empty. The moment I stopped pouring was the moment I started to become whole again. I lost a sister and a niece, but I regained my self-respect. And it turns out that's a trade I'm more than willing to make. So I have to ask all of you listening, was I wrong to pull the plug? Should I have swallowed my pride one last time for the sake of my niece's immediate future? Or was it time to finally teach them that a bank account has feelings, and just the uncle can also be the man who signs the checks?